שלום, ערב טוב. Good evening. תודה רבה להראל סקאט, תודה רבה למקהלת הילדים הנהדרת. נדבר אחרי שהראל סקאט שר, זה רף גבוה, אבל ננסה. אני מאוד שמחה להיות כאן הערב, במקום ההיסטורי הזה, בערב הזה, כולו מוקדש ליחסים המיוחדים מאוד בין ישראל לארצות הברית. ברשותכם, קצת אנגלית. Good evening, distinguished guests. We welcome our very special guest, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Mrs. Nikki Haley, and her husband, Michael. U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mr. David Friedman. Members of the government, Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovich, Rabbi of Western Wall, Dr. Miriam Edelson and Mr. Sheldon Edelson, publishers of Israel, Hayom. Prime Minister Netanyahu and his wife Sarah will be with us shortly. Dear guests, we are gathered here tonight, this holy and unique place, Jerusalem, to celebrate the special relationship between Israel and the United States. Two proud democracies sharing beliefs, sharing vision and values. We will travel tonight to the past and to the future, from the roots to the heights. But first, let's start the evening officially with the Israeli and the American anthem. Please rise. בשביל להבין את עומק הקשר בין ארצות הברית, בין העם היהודי, צריך ללכת הרבה אחורה, הרבה לפני 2019, זה בטוח, הרבה לפני 1973 והסיוע, אפילו לפני 29 בנובמבר 1947. ממש במתחם הזה מתנצלת קשת עתיקה, בסיס לגשר שהוביל אל בית המקדש. הקשת הזאת התגלתה כבר בשנת 1838 על הסופר האמריקאי אדוארד רובינסון, ועד היום את קשת רובינסון. החיבור בין העם האמריקאי לעם היהודי היה מאז ומעולם קשר של שותפות, שורשים משותפים, עשייה משותפת, חזון משותף, קשר של אמונה בכוח של אדם לעצב את ההיסטוריה במו ידיו, באמונה ביכולת של העם להיות מגדלור של דמוקרטיה, של חירות, של תקווה. 243 שנות ידידות בין האמריקאי לעם היהודי, 71 שנות ידידות בין ארצות הברית ומדינת ישראל. בואו נראה.
ישראל וארצות הברית, שתי אומות של חלוצים אשר הלכו בדרך שאיש לא הלך בה. שתי אומות של פורצי דרך אשר עשו את הבלתי אפשרי. שתי אומות, אוקיינוס ביניהן, וידידות עמוקה ששורשיה הולכים הרבה לאחור. זהו סיפור על נבואות שהתגשמו בידי אדם. סיפורם של חולמים שמצאו שותפי אמת. ושל חולמות שפעלו כל חייהן לתיקון עולם. ברגעים של מאבק למען חירות וכבוד, ברגעים בהם נדרשת הקרבה והתגייסות, נרקמים קשרים שמעצבים את ההיסטוריה.
אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל.
זהו סיפור על גאווה ועל שייכות, על אנשים שבחרו לעשות את הדבר הנכון ולהיות שם כשהיינו זקוקים להם יותר מכל. זהו סיפור של תקווה, של אומץ לעשות שינוי, להושיט יד ולשנות חיים של אלפים, לסרטט חזון ולהטמיע אותו בלי פחד. זהו סיפור שממשיך ונכתב בכל יום, ומעצב מחדש את ההיסטוריה שלנו. זהו הסיפור המשותף לשתי האומות, הדרך המשותפת שלנו, ורק השמיים הם הגבול.
The United States Embassy in Jerusalem. Congratulations.
Israel has no better ally than the United States. And I want to assure you, the United States has no better ally than Israel.
זה לכבוד החברות המיוחדת הזאת והאירוע המיוחד הזה, כבוד נשיא המדינה, מר ראובן רובי ריבלין, הכין עבורנו ברכה מיוחדת.
יקירותיי, יקיריי, באו מוזמני הפורום המכובד הזה. אני שמח מאוד לברך אתכם היום לרגע האירוע שבו אנו מציינים את הידידות האמיצה וארוכת השנים בין מדינת ישראל ובת בריתנו הגדולה, ארצות הברית של אמריקה. הידידות האמריקאית הייתה ועודה חיונית לקיומה ולשגשוגה של מדינת ישראל. הידידות הזו סייעה לנו תמיד להתמודד מול קשיים ביטחוניים וכלכליים, ולהקים כאן מדינה פורחת ומשגשגת בלב המזרח התיכון. מדינה שהיא בית לאומי לעם היהודי. מדינה שהיא יהודית ודמוקרטית. מדינה שמשמרת את המורשת ומפתחת את הטכנולוגיה. בזכות הברית בין ישראל וארצות הברית, ישראל כיום היא אי של ביטחון וקדמה, שמבטיח את היציבות והביטחון באזור כולו, תוך שהוא תורם לעולם כולו בתחומי הסייבר, הרפואה, החקלאות, הביטחון והכלכלה. לשמחתי, החיבור העמוק בין המדינות איננו חיבור פוליטי. רפובליקנים ודמוקרטים, ימין ושמאל, bipartisan, כולם מאמינים בקשר העמוק בין המדינות, בערכים המשותפים ובמחויבות ההדדית. מכובדיי, יקירותיי ויקיריי, לפני שנה התאספנו לא רחוק מפה לטקס העברת השגרירות האמריקאית לעיר הבירה של מדינת ישראל, לירושלים. העברת השגרירות הייתה נקודת ציון משמעותית שבה חזה העולם כולו ובעוצמת הקשרים שבינינו. אנחנו מלאי תודה לנשיא טראמפ על צעד גדול של מנהיג אמיץ. אני רק מקווה שמדינות ומנהיגים רבים יבואו אחריו, יצעדו בעקבותיו ויעבירו את שגרירויותיהן לירושלים. היום אנחנו יודעים לומר כי הידידות בינינו איתנה מתמיד. אנחנו ממשיכים לחלום ולהדק את הקשרים בינינו לעוד שנים רבות קדימה. אנו ממשיכים ומניחים את היסודות המחברים בין העמים באופן שיאפשר שגשוג ופריחה הדדית לנו ולכל מי שחי באזור ובעולם החופשי כולו. עם סיום דבריי אני רוצה להודות למוציא לאור, דוקטור מרים אדלסון, ובעלי העיתון שלדון אדלסון, על מאמציהם לחיזוק הקשר בין ישראל וארצות הברית, ועל אהבתם ותמיכתם במדינת ישראל. אני רוצה להודות לעורך, בועז ביסמוט, מר בועז ביסמוט, על עשייתו העיתונאית ועל מחויבותו להוציא לאור עיתון יומי עם תוכן עשיר ומרתק, גם אם פעמים הוא במחלוקת. And finally, I would like to welcome and to thank former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Mrs. Nikki Haley. It is a pleasure, such a great pleasure, to welcome you to Israel and to our capital, Jerusalem. You are a dear friend of Israel. We appreciate your strong stand on the world's most important stage in support of the security of the people and the state of Israel. And all you did and still doing to stand up for the values of freedom and democracy that we share. Welcome. Welcome back to Israel. Welcome back to Jerusalem. God bless you all. Hayom.
הוא אמר היו ברוכים בסוף. פן נוסף ומשמעותי ביחסי ישראל וארצות הברית הוא זירת החדשנות. אקו-סיסטם משותף שבו סטארט-אפים, קרנות הון סיכון אמריקאיות שמשקיעות במיזמים ישראלים, תמיכה בהזנקים משותפים שנועדו לפיתוח מדינות עולם שלישי, אין ספור יוזמות עסקיות וקורמות סיבים אופטיים של חדשנות בין המדינות שלנו. בואו נראה.
ישראל וארצות הברית הן שתי אומות שנשענות על חשיבה יזמית, רוח של הרפתקנות ואומץ ללכת אל הלא נודע. מערכת היחסים בין שתי האומות הולידה שיתופי פעולה טכנולוגיים מרשימים ואקוסיסטם משותף של חדשנות.
תודה רבה ללהקת פירומניה. הערב אנחנו מעניקים פרס מיוחד למפעל חיים ופעילות בשירות הציבור הישראלי לפרופסור משה ארנס, שהלך מאיתנו השנה. פרופסור משה ארנס, בן דור המייסדים של מדינת ישראל, נולד בליטא בשנת 1925. הוא היגר עם משפחתו לארצות הברית. הוא שירת בצבא האמריקאי וסיים לימודי הנדסה ב-MIT. ב-1971 זכה בפרס ביטחון ישראל ותרם להידוק ושדרוג היחסים האסטרטגיים המיוחדים עם ארצות הברית. ארנס כיהן כשר החוץ ושר הביטחון בממשלותיהם של מנחם בגין, יצחק שמיר ובנימין נתניהו. הוא שירת כשגריר ישראל בוושינגטון והיה חלק בלתי נפרד מהנוף הפוליטי ומהצמרת הביטחונית אסטרטגית של ישראל במשך שנים רבות, כשהוא בולט בתבונתו, יושרו, המקוריות של המחשבה שלו והדבקות בהשקפת עולמו. ארנס נחשב תמיד לג'נטלמן, רציני, עדין, מאופק, אידיאולוג מלומד שמוביל פוליטיקה נקייה, עניינית, מכבדת. בשלוש כהונותיו כשר הביטחון הוא עיצב וגיבש את תפיסת הביטחון של ישראל למשך שנים. בינואר השנה הוא הלך לעולמו. אין ספק שהוא יירשם, כבר נרשם, בדפי ההיסטוריה שלנו כאחד ממשרתי הציבור האיכותיים, היצירתיים והמחויבים ביותר לביטחון ישראל. אני מתכבדת להזמין אל הבמה את המוציאה לאור של ישראל היום, הדוקטור מרים אדלסון, שתעניק את האות לביתו של משה ארנס, עליזה. בבקשה. עליזה בדרכה אלינו. כן. עליזה תאמר כמה מילים.
ערב טוב ונעים לכל האורחים והאורחות המכובדים והמכובדות. אבי לא איתנו מזה חצי שנה. לדאבון ליבנו, אמי נפטרה כחודשיים אחריו, לא הרבה אנשים יודעים את זה. כך למעשה, יד ביד הם נפרדו מהמשפחה ומהעולם הסובב אותם. בעוד שבועיים אגב הם היו אמורים לחגוג 70 שנות נישואים. יחסי ישראל וארצות הברית היו נר לרגליו של אבא. כמי שנאלץ בילדותו לעזוב את ריגה, עיר הולדתו, ערב מלחמת העולם השנייה, הוא גדל ובגר בחיק הדמוקרטיה האמריקאית וראה באמריקה מופת לאומה גדולה. עם רעייתו, אמי יוריאל ושלושת ילדיו, אני ביניהם, הצעירה נולדה כבר בחיפה, הם עלו ארצה מארצות הברית והותירו את כל משפחתם הקרובה הרחק מאחור. בישראל, אבי שקד ללא לאות, בין היתר, לשמור ולבסס את הדמוקרטיה הישראלית הצעירה. תמיד היה גאה במדינת ישראל, באנשיה ובהישגיה הרבים. כבוד גדול לי לקבל בשם המשפחה את אות ההוקרה לאבי, זיכרונו לברכה, בעיר ירושלים, בה ניסינו, מנדי, נמצא בקהל, בעלי ואני, ושבה בחרנו לבסס את משפחתנו ואת חיינו המקצועיים. אנו מודים לדוקטור מרים ושלדון אדלסון על היחסים החמים שהיו לכם במשך שנים ארוכות ועל המחווה הנדיבה הזו לאחר מותו של אבא. אנו מאחלים לכם בריאות טובה ומודים לכם מקרב לב. במידה ואבי צופה עלינו כעת מלמעלה, יש להניח שהוא מחייך בסיפוק ואומר לכולנו, Keep up the good work. תמשיכו את העבודה הטובה. תודה רבה.
תודה רבה לעליזה ארנס ולדוקטור אדלסון. עוד קצת היסטוריה, לא יותר מדי, ברשותכם. ההסתדרות הציונית הוקמה בקונגרס הציוני הראשון שנערך לא נעשה מבחן, ב-1897 בבאזל, ביוזמתו של בנימין זאב הרצל, כמובן. אותו קונגרס שכמו שראינו בתחילת הערב, השתתפו בו 4 צירים אמריקאים. מאז שהוקמה פועלת ההסתדרות לקידום הרעיון הציוני על כל היבטיו. סגן יושב ראש ההסתדרות הציונית וממלא מקום יושב הראש יעקב חגואל ביקש לברך אותנו הערב. הנה.
ברוכים הבאים לערב חגיגי וחשוב שכולו בסימן הצדעה ליחסי ישראל וארצות הברית. אם רוצים להבין כמה עמוקה הידידות והמחויבות בין שתי המדינות, די להסתכל על עמידתה של השגרירה איילי לצד ישראל באום ועל הקשר המדיני והביטחוני העמוק. הכרתה של ארצות הברית בירושלים וברמת הגולן כחלק בלתי נפרד ממדינת ישראל מהווה אבן דרך נוספת לאינטרסים המשותפים. כארגון שהקים את מדינת ישראל, ההסתדרות הציונית העולמית תמשיך לעמוד יחד עם ראשי הקהילה היהודית להקניית הערכים המשותפים שלנו, תוך מאבק עיקש בתופעות האנטישמיות ותנועות אחרים, ובשיתוף פעולה מלא עם יהדות ארצות הברית. ההסתדרות הציונית פועלת לעידוד עלייה, הסברה וחינוך ציוני, ושולחת מורים ישראלים המלמדים עברית ויהדות במאות בתי ספר יהודיים בארצות הברית. אנחנו גאים בקשר החזק עם ארצות הברית ומאחלים לנו עוד הרבה שנים של ידידות אמת.
תודה ליעקב חגואל. ירושלים היא דוגמה נדירה לעיר שהיא בית עבור 3 הדתות שדרות בו בכפיפה אחת, לפעמים במרחק של מטרים ספורים בלבד זו מזו. ומה שרציתי להגיד זה שהיות שהיא בית של 3 דתות, אנחנו עכשיו נעצור לרגע ונקשיב למואזין ואז אנחנו נמשיך באירוע שלנו.
קהל נכבד, מצטרף אלינו כעת ראש הממשלה מר בנימין נתניהו, מלווה ברעייתו, הגברת שרה נתניהו.
אנחנו נודה לאליאב דואדו על הנהיגה המופלאה שלו בעוד שהתלווה למואזין. נחכה כמה שניות שראש הממשלה ורעייתו יתפסו את מקומותיהם. ונמשיך. בבקשה, תשבו.
שנייה.
בועז, אני רוצה לדבר עליך, מר ביסמוט. טוב, נמשיך. לעורך ישראל היום, בועז ביסמוט, יש זווית ראייה ייחודית על יחסי ישראל וארצות הברית. ביסמוט, נזכיר, היה העיתונאי הישראלי הראשון שראיין את טראמפ אחרי שנבחר לנשיאות. מאז הוא ראיין אותו עוד פעמיים, לא שאינו צרה בכך, והוא צפה מראש גם את העברת השגרירות האמריקאית לירושלים, גם את ההכרזה האמריקנית שמכירה בריבונות הישראלית ברמת הגולן. אחרי כל אלה אנחנו מאוד סקרנים לשמוע איזה תחזיות תנפק עבורנו הערב. אני שמחה ומתכבדת להזמין אל הבמה את העורך הראשי של ישראל היום, מר בועז ביסמוט.
ערב טוב. הבטחתי תחזיות מאוד קל, תחזיות בארצות הברית עם נשיא כמו טראמפ, כי פשוט כשהוא מבטיח אז הוא מקיים. אז לא הייתי כזה גאון, הוא פשוט מימש את כל מה שהוא הבטיח. ערב טוב, ואני מודה ואני מתרגש. זה כבוד גדול להיות במקום הזה עם אורחים כאלה. ערב מיוחד. הפורום הזה והערב הזה עומדים בסימן של שותפות ושל יחסים מיוחדים ששרדו את שיני הזמן, ולא זו בלבד שלא נשחקו או דעכו במרוצת העשורים האחרונים, אלא אף שודרגו, התרחבו והתעצמו יותר ויותר בחלוף השנים. בכל זאת, משום שעם כל הערכה וההוקרה לפועלו העצום של הנשיא דונלד טראמפ לביצורה של מערכת היחסים עם ישראל ולשמירה על ביטחונה, מדובר בבת ברית שתמיד חצתה גבולות מפלגתיים ותנועתיים, שסודותיה האיתנים לא היו רק ברובד הממשלי, אלא גם ובעיקר במישור החברתי, התרבותי, הדתי והערכי. שכן, ביסודו של דבר, לפנינו שותפות בין חברות, קהילות וקיבוצים, שיצרו בעבר ויוצרים גם היום תנאים של חיבה וקרבה בין שתי האומות. שכן, שתי החברות גם יחד חולקות זו עם זו מורשת, אתוס, אידיאלים מכוננים ותהליכי סוציאליזציה שהפכו את תהליך תחייתו של העם היהודי במולדתו העתיקה לדומה כל כך לתהליך יצירתה והתגבשותה של האומה האמריקנית. תהליך שהתבסס על ראייתו של הניסיון הישראלי כתעתיק מעורר השראה, השתאות והערצה של החוויה האמריקנית. ולפיכך, ברור שברית זו אינה מוגבלת אך ורק למישור הפוליטי, נהפוך הוא. זוהי רעות רבת פנים ועמוקת שורשים ששום עננה חולפת במרחב המפלגתי לא תוכל לסדוק או להחליש, ואשר עתידה להקרין מאורה גם במרוצת 70 השנים הבאות ואף מעבר להן. ואם באור עסקינן אנחנו נמצאים למרגלות הר קודשו בבירת ישראל ירושלים, שהיא אורו של עולם, כמאמר חכמינו. עיר שחוברה לה יחדיו, שעושה את כל ישראל חברים. מכאן יצאה הבשורה לכל עמי התרבות בעולם, ולכאן היא תשוב. בהצלחה לכולנו. תודה. תרשו לי, גבירותיי ורבותיי, להזמין לבמה את ראש ממשלת ישראל, מר בנימין נתניהו. שמתם לב, אפילו איפה לשבת, אנחנו מתווכחים, אבל מסכימים. טוב, ראית, אתה ניצחת.
החלטנו.
ברשותך, אדוני, טיסה, חזרת עכשיו מטקס, אני חושב, סיום, נכון? קורס טייס? ברשותך נצפה בסרט קצר.
United States? Yes? А он возмущен. Какая, так сказать, невинность, понимаете, разыгрывается. Can be found today, mobilizing the weapons of science and technology. באתנו, כאן תלמיד, הבית באתנו.
דובר צה"ל מוסר כי סמוך לשעה 2 פתחו הכוחות המצריים
An uninterrupted and sincere search for peace. Four, three, two.
This military action, taken in accord with United Nations resolutions and with the consent of the United States.
Has just hit another building, flew right into the middle of it.
Final settlement must take into account those realities and be agreeable to the parties.
I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. In a moment, I will sign a presidential proclamation recognizing Israel's sovereign right over the Golan Heights.
אדוני, אחרי כל הפתגות שכבר נכבשו.
I agree with that.
With everything. So after all,
talk about it.
You want to speak in English?
לא אכפת לי.
לא אכפת. So we'll speak both. We'll guests from America, guests from the United States, from Israel. אבל anyway, let's go back to Hebrew. אחרי כל הפסגות שכבר נכבשו, כפי שראינו בסרט, אדוני, למה עוד אפשר עוד לחתור או לצפות, והאם יש פסגה נוספת שאתה באופן אישי עוד שואף אליה?
קודם כל, אנחנו כל הזמן בנתיב עלייה. כל הזמן שיתוף הפעולה המודיעיני, מבצעי, תחומי ההגנה, תחומי הביטחון, כל הזמן במסלול של עלייה בשנים האחרונות, בעוצמה אדירה. בשתיים או בשנה האחרונה, אדירה. היא לא מפריז, אני זהיר מאוד באמירה שלי, יש כאן שיתוף פעולה שלא היה מעולם בתחום הביטחון, ולדעתי זו רק ההתחלה. עכשיו, אני אתן לך דוגמה. How's your Hebrew? Good. Okay, you've heard of the five eyes, right? That's the five eyes of American allies in intelligence. There is a sixth eye, and it, in my judgment, the first ally of the United States in intelligence. That eye is Israel. Israel not only receives intelligence from the United States, but Israel, I believe, gives the United States intelligence second to none, none in the world. And that makes Israel a tremendous ally of Israel, of the United States. The second thing that's peculiar about Israel is that we don't seek American boots on the ground. We don't seek America, we don't ask America to fight for us. Can you name any other ally of the United States that categorically says that? Can you? No, I'm listening to you. I'm waiting to hear. So Israel is the best ally the United States can have. The third thing is that Israel makes technology, which services not only intelligence on the governmental level, but also in every field of human endeavor. We're in the middle of a revolution, technological revolution, and the future belongs to those who innovate. Bill Ford, Ford Motor Company, came here, said to me, you have the best mobile, smart mobility technology in the world. I said, you mean second best smart? No, he said, no, the best. We're here. We're opening more and more and more. Eric Schmidt of Google told me you have, in the areas that I'm interested, the best technology in the world. I said, you mean second? He said, no, the best. And so on. It goes on and on and on. So Israel is a valuable ally of the United States, not merely in intelligence, not merely in defense, but also in civilian areas that change the lives of everyone. And here's the last point. If Israel wasn't here, the Middle East would collapse. And I think it's very important that the Middle East not collapse. I think the fact that Israel is here assures that our flanks, therefore the entire region, remains pro-Western, pro-American, I have to say pro-American, and secure from the force of Islamism in Iran and other forces. I think this is the reality that is being increased all the time. Where would I like to see it go? More of the same, more and more and more of this, but also perhaps to institutionalize the alliance in such a way that it will stand the winds of change for the foreseeable future. I'm thinking about it. I've talked to President Trump about it and to members of his administration. After we win the next election, we'll take it forward. Thank you.
You want to speak about elections?
Yeah, sure.
In America or in Israel? They have also elections.
Now, you know, I don't know where I'll fall flatter on my face to do that about that or here. I'll think about it.
Anyway, you mentioned, sir, Prime Minister, you mentioned boots on the ground, and that makes me think immediately of Iran. Look, you make me speak English. This is you. I wanted to speak in Hebrew. Anyway, you spoke about boots on the
נעליים על
ground.
הקרקע, זה לא אותו הדבר.
זה לא אותו דבר, אתה רוצה גם שאני אתרגם? לא נכון, אבל לא נורא.
מגפיים על הקרקע.
אז נחזור לאיראן, אדוני. איראן שוב עלתה לכותרות בימים האחרונים. האם התגובה של הממשל להפלת המל"ט האמריקני במפרץ הייתה נכונה, קרי פגיעה כלכלית ולא פגיעה צבאית? ובכלל, כיצד היית מתאר, אדוני, את שיתוף הפעולה והתיאום הביטחוני עם הממשל האמריקני בסוגיה האיראנית?
מה שקורה עם איראן זה... איראן קיבלה מתנה ענקית בהסכם הגרעין. הסכם הגרעין נתן לה דרך חופשית, פתוחה, מובטחת, להגיע לארסנל גרעיני תוך כמה שנים. בלי לשנות שום דבר מההתנהגות שלה, פשוט לתת את הזמן לחלוף. והיא יכולה, תוך כמה שנים, היום זה עוד 5 שנים, היא יכולה להעשיר אורניום, שזה הליבה של פצצות גרעין, בלי הגבלה. עם צנטריפוגות שבינתיים היא מפתחת שהיא עוד יותר אפקטיביות. ולכן, תמורת איזו הקפאה זמנית של העשרה לפצצה אחת, היא בעצם מקבלת האפשרות להעשיר 100 פצצות, 200 פצצות, להפוך לכוח גרעיני עולמי. זאת התקלה הראשונה של ההסכם. התקלה השנייה היא שקיבלה מאות מיליארדי דולרים, גם בכסף וגם באשראי, מיד. עבור במרכאות הוויתור הזה, שהוא שום לא ויתור, הוא מתנה. קיבלה 2 מתנות ענק. ההנחה של חותמי ההסכם היה שזה שווה את זה, כי אם איראן תקבל את הכסף הזה, איראן תהפוך מדינה שוחרת שלום. זו הייתה ההנחה שלה. היא תמתן את ההתנהגות שלה באזור. מה שקרה זה שההפך הגמור התרחש. ואיראן התחילה בעצם לקחת את הכסף הזה ולהפוך, להשתמש בו כדלק למכונת המלחמה, הכיבוש והטרור שלה. That's what happened, אוקיי? אני התנגדתי כמובן להסכם הגרעין הזה. זה לא היה פשוט ללכת לקונגרס האמריקני. It's always difficult for an Israeli prime minister to challenge the policies of an American president. And certainly I had no particular desire to do so, but I felt compelled to do so because I thought that this deal, if unchallenged, would imperil the survival of Israel. So I went there. I then went and talked to the two candidates, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I said, you must abandon this deal if you're elected. Both of them heard me out. Trump said, this is the worst deal in the world. What he said. It's the lousiest deal. Whoever made such a deal? I'm paraphrasing because he was a little less diplomatic, okay? He won the election, and he walked away from the deal and reimposed sanctions, which I think is great. Just a terrific thing. And I want to applaud in general his administration, which is represented here by 3 distinguished diplomats. Ambassador David Friedman, America's ambassador to Israel, Ambassador Jason Greenblatt, President Trump's emissary to the Middle East, Ambassador Nikki Haley. She was very soft in the UN, you know?
Very soft.
Very soft in the UN. And that's an amazing team, along with the others in the administration. I mean, it's a very forceful turnaround, but the most dramatic change is not only the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital or the movement of the embassy here and the recognition of the Golan. These are historic things, but equally, and no less historically significant, is the decision to walk away from the deal. When the president walked away from the deal, Iran tried to do 2 things. First, they tried to implant themselves militarily in Syria. We resist that all the time. We refuse to accept. We will not let Iran entrench itself militarily in Syria, and we do what is necessary to prevent that. So we're fighting Iran militarily in Syria, and President Trump essentially is waging a very forceful confrontation with Iran economically. Iran is suffering, that regime is suffering. Because they're suffering, what they're doing is trying to use all sorts of methods and proxies and so on to pinprick in the Gulf and possibly to escalate in Syria, possibly. We have to resist them and confront them. I think the president's decision to put more sanctions is the right one, and my decision to prevent them from entrenching themselves in Syria is also the correct decision. We have to keep up the pressure. Just keep up the pressure and don't relent.
But Prime Minister Netanyahu, first of all, you mentioned that Ambassador Haley is here with the other very distinguished American guest here, and the fact maybe that Ambassador Haley is here with us in Jerusalem and not at the UN permitted the Iranian ambassador to be a bit harsh today. Never mind, you didn't answer me if you were
I don't even know what he said. What did he say?
You don't know what the Iranians say, sir?
No,
you're surprised.
I was in a helicopter.
It was a bit harsh, and they're not very happy right now with the sanctions. But if we speak about sanctions in the Iranian deal, last night, and we spoke about elections, not yours, let's speak about American elections, that's easy. They had a debate yesterday in Florida, and 9 out of the 10 candidates, what did they say? They want to go back to the deal. That worries you, what's happening in the America, but on the other side, at the Democratic Party?
Well, it's wrong. I think that any objective look at the consequences of doing that would come to the conclusion that it would actually hurt the interests of the United States and the region and so on. And look at the region. I always say when the Arabs and Israelis agree on something, you may as well pay attention. Maybe we know something about this region, and we do. Iran is the single greatest threat to world peace today and on the horizon, and it should not be allowed to get nuclear weapons. To go back to the JCPOA means letting Iran get nuclear weapons. President Trump has said he will not let Iran get nuclear weapons. I, as the Prime Minister of Israel, tell you, I will not allow Iran to get nuclear weapons. It's a mistake to go back to the JCPOA.
I think many here agree with you, sir. Do you mind if we go back to Hebrew just for one or two questions?
אני אשתדל.
Good. מה ההישג הבולט ביותר של ישראל במערכת היחסים עם ארצות הברית? הכרזת הנשיא טראמפ על הכרה בירושלים כבירת ישראל? הכרה אמריקנית בריבונות ישראל ברמת הגולן? או הכרה שקיימת זהות אינטרסים מלאה בסוגיית המלחמה בטרור, אדוני?
All of the above.
All of them, the same. You know, we mentioned before, it wasn't my plan, the Democratic Party, we mentioned the debate yesterday, and then I'll ask you in Hebrew again, מה חייבת ישראל לעשות על מנת לשמר את הבסיס הדו-מפלגתי של היחסים המיוחדים? ובאמת, האם אתה מודאג מהסחף לישראל שחל באגף הליברלי, מפלגה הדמוקרטית?
קודם כל, אם יש לך פרספקטיבה היסטורית על זה, ההנחה שהתמיכה בישראל, בארצות הברית, תמיד הייתה שווה, דו-מפלגתית ושווה, היא לא נכונה. במשך עשרות שנים, התמיכה היותר חזקה הייתה במפלגה הדמוקרטית, והמפלגה הפחות חזקה הייתה במפלגה הרפובליקנית.
טרומן, תוך 11 דקות, היה דמוקרט, שהכיר במדינת ישראל.
כן, אייזנהאואר הכריח את בן גוריון, יחד עם הרוסים דרך אגב, לסגת מסיני. דרך אגב, אתם רוצים פרספקטיבה על כמה העולם משתנה? עכשיו הייתה לנו פסגה.
יש לך 4 דקות ו10 שניות לעשות את זה.
שלשום הייתה לנו פסגה פה, משולשת עם ארצות הברית ורוסיה, על איך אנחנו מוציאים אויבת של ישראל, איראן, מסוריה. אז זה חתיכת שינוי. איך אתה אומר חתיכת שינוי באנגלית? That's one hell of a change in our international standing, and I'm very proud that we're leading this change. With the strongest relationship that we've ever had, the strongest alliance we've ever had with the United States, and with good relations with Russia. And Israel is in a position to speak to both, and I'm looking for a zone of agreement. That's jargon, but it's really a zone of agreement in Syria, because I think all of us agree on the end goal of getting Iran out of Syria. We have a small matter on how to accomplish it, but it's an important starting point. So in any case, it wasn't always the case that the Republicans supported Israel more and Democrats less. It was actually the other way around. For a time, it evened out, and now it's changing. It's changing not because of Israel. And first of all, there's a lot of support in the Democratic Party there. Let's not give that up in any way, and I certainly do not. I do not give up on the bipartisan support, but it has changed over the years. The reason it's changing, I think, is not related to Israel. It's related to America and to changes that are taking place in the United States. I think we have to do everything we can to maintain powerful support for Israel in both parties, but I don't think that we can assure that that level would be even at all times.
Prime Minister, we have here with us this evening, straight from Bahrain, Special Envoy Jason Greenblatt. Prime Minister, between you and me, would you like to be in Bahrain this week? You personally?
Well, in an air-conditioned room.
But if we speak about Bahrain, of course, we speak of this ultimate...
I don't speak of my travels in the Middle East and daylight.
You don't speak daylight?
No.
So let's speak about something we can. I mean, that's not traveling. You can be in Israel, in Jerusalem, and think about the ultimate deal. I'll ask it in Hebrew. אתה מאמין שבאמת בסופו של דבר נמצא פתרון לסכסוך הזה כאן, במקום הזה, שאנחנו נמצאים בירושלים?
קודם כל, כדי למצוא פתרון לסכסוך צריך לגשת לשורש הסכסוך, ושורש הסכסוך היה ונשאר הסירוב העיקש הפלסטיני להכיר במדינת היהודים בגבולות כלשהם. זה השורש האמיתי של הסכסוך. כל השאר נגזרות, אבל זה השורש של הסכסוך. זה אחד. הדבר השני, אני חושב וזה דורש פתרון פוליטי, כמובן. אבל אני לא חושב כתוצאה מזה שזה קשה, או שצריך לעשות אותו בשלבים, בגלל זה צריך למנוע או להחרים את הפסגה החשובה הזאת בבחריין. הבסיס הכלכלי הוא חשוב, הוא מנסה חשוב ליחסי דו-קיום, בסופו של דבר גם לשלום. הוא לא פותר את הצורך בשינוי אידיאולוגי בצד הפלסטיני, אבל הוא מכשיר את זה. ואני לא מבין איך יכול להיות שהפלסטינים שצריכים לדאוג לעמם, מקבלים הצעות להשקעות מסיביות של עשרות מיליארדי דולרים, והם אומרים, לא מעניין אותנו. אז זה אומר לך שהאידיאולוגיה הרבה יותר חזקה. האידיאולוגיה לא נותנת להם לעזור אפילו לעמים שלהם. ביחס לבחריין, אני הסתכלתי, ג'ארד קושנר וג'ייסון גרינבלט היו בירושלים והראו לי את פרטי התוכנית. התוכנית הזאת היא חזקה מאוד, כי יש לה רעיון אחד עמוק וחשוב ואמיתי ביסודו, וזה להחליף סעד בהשקעות. בעצם להחליף את הכלכלה הפלסטינית שמבוססת, it's a welfare-based Palestinian economy. And what Jared and Jason have proposed in the Bahrain conference is basically to change welfare into investment and actually connect the two. I think that's a brilliant idea. How do I know? Because we did it in Israel, and it worked. That's why we are where we are today.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, time's up. Still one question that I have to ask you.
Well, who says time's up? I mean, just
they
because
say it's not me, the organizer. Who am I? You are Prime Minister, I'm an editor, but we don't decide here on the stage. You are Prime Minister. First of all, everybody, I think, should... I think on the 20th of July, you're going to break the record of Ben Gurion to be the longest term Prime Minister of Israel. Is that so? It's long, huh? Baruch Hashem.
Who's counting?
You're not counting. Good. But I counted and I checked, so it means that you worked with 3 American presidents. I think, Bill Clinton, that's all, first term. And then President Obama, how can we forget? And then we have President Trump, how can we forget also? We assume 2020 elections. Let's imagine that you and me would like the same person to win. Let's assume, maybe I'll take it for myself. How many more presidents are you intending to work with, sir?
Not more than 3 or 4, no. No, I'll tell you, first of all, it's not what I decide, it's what the people of Israel decide. But even that's not true, because they just decided. They decided very clearly, I mean, a majority of the public decided that they wanted me as Prime Minister, and parties ran for office promising that, and, our system is changing. I'm thinking of studying Italian. But even Italy has stopped doing this. I mean, this is an unfortunate turn of events, but it's the deck you're handed, the deck of cards you're handed. So we'll deal with that. I don't know. It's for the people to decide, and one would hope that the politicians would do what the people genuinely want, because I think that usually breeds the best government. There is no other substitute. As far as America and Israel are concerned, I'll say this to summarize what I said in the beginning, and I truly believe this. I think Israel has no better and greater ally than the United States, and the United States has no better ally than Israel. This is not a slogan, it's true. This also doesn't mean that we don't have many, many other alliances or relationships or friendships that are forming in the world because of our power. Our technological and economic power on the one side, our intelligence and military power on the other side, that's causing just about every country in the world to come to Israel, and you see it in the flourish of economic activity. This is a reversal of what my opponents constantly believed and advocated for decades. They said, first we'll make concessions, dangerous concessions to the Palestinians in order to get acceptance in the Arab world, in order to get acceptance in the wider world. My position has been the exact opposite. First, we get accepted in the world, then we get accepted in the Arab world, and then we'll work to get acceptance, a realistic peace with the Palestinians. I think we're doing that because we've increased Israel's power in these areas, but the United States is different from all the other countries that are coming to Israel. The United States has a partnership with Israel that is based on this. It's the city on a hill. It's the vision thing, you know? It's history, it's values, it's democracy, it's sympathy. And it works both ways. We're all pro-American. Thank you.
We all agree with you. Thank you very much, Prime Minister Netanyahu. City of the Hill, Reagan, of course. Let's go back. And what can I wish you tonight? To work with many, many American presidents. Thank you very much.
תודה רבה. תודה.
תודה.
לראש הממשלה, מר בנימין נתניהו. תודה רבה לעורך הראשי של ישראל היום, מר בועז ביסמוט. קהל נכבד, מצטרף אלינו כעת כבוד נשיא המדינה, מר ראובן רובי ריבלין, נכבדו בקימה. יופי, עכשיו שהשורה הראשונה מלאה, אפשר להמשיך. אני שמחה ומתכבדת להזמין אל הבמה את שגריר ארצות הברית בישראל, מר דיוויד פרידמן, U.S. Ambassador to Israel. Mr. David Friedman, please come to the stage.
Am I supposed to sing? Okay, good. Okay. President Rivlin, Prime Minister Netanyahu, Sarah Netanyahu, publisher of Israel Hayom, Miriam Edelson and Sheldon Edelson, Ambassador Nikki Haley, your husband Michael, Nikki, welcome. Great to have you back. We missed you so much. Editor of Israel Hayom, Boaz Bismuth. Jason Greenblatt, my colleague and dear friend, welcome back from Bahrain, where, at least to my thinking, you had a transformational experience. As you were making history in Bahrain on June 25th, I had the chance to make history here as well, attending the trilateral meeting among the national security advisors of the United States, Russia, and Israel, organized by the Prime Minister. So we had a conflict that day, but I was with you in spirit, and congratulations on an incredible workshop. It seems that if you don't make history every couple of days on this job, you should probably check your pulse. That's what it's like to be here. My wife Tammy, thank you for coming back from your trip to New York in order to get here tonight for this event. To all the distinguished guests. Because this is a media-sponsored event, I'm going to, if you don't mind, just for a couple of minutes, change the subject that we've dwelled on for the past 45 minutes or so, and speak about something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is the subject of the media and the truth. In past generations, those words, media and the truth, they were essentially synonymous. Now, unfortunately, in some instances, they're not, and even occasionally self-contradictory. When I grew up, and I'm sure I echo many experiences here, I watched Walter Cronkite on the CBS Evening News. And every night, Walter Cronkite would come into our homes, and he would deliver the news truthfully. He would deliver it completely, faithfully. And the news of the day, in those days, was the Vietnam War. That typically was the lead story every night with regard to the Vietnam War. And it wasn't until Walter Cronkite died that we ever learned just how forcefully and ideologically he opposed the Vietnam War. He reported on it every single day. Nobody knew that he was really a strong, forceful opponent of the war. He kept his feelings to himself as he reported the news because those feelings, let's face it, really were not relevant to the task of reporting the news. Today, most news anchors operate differently. They have no misgivings about sharing their views with their audience. They feel totally comfortable indicating how they feel about a particular event, or perhaps shading their reporting to fit their particular ideological leanings. And I'm not speaking about opinion journalism. Obviously, opinion journalism is by definition an opinion. It's appropriate. It reflects the views of the author. I'm talking about hard news. I'm talking about the conflation of opinion journalism and, if you will, hard news. When hard news becomes subject to ideological partisanship, the loser is democracy itself. Democracies like the United States and Israel depend first and foremost on the electorate getting it right. We depend upon people to vote and make informed decisions. They have to elect the right people. That's how democracies work. If the electorate is ill-informed, if the electorate is deprived of the hard facts, unvarnished and unspun, then we essentially, as a nation, are deprived of this essential democratic process. Now, not every media outlet is flawed. Many are, some with the broadest penetration in their respective countries. Israel Hayom, our host, you guys are okay, I just want you to know. I wouldn't make this speech if I was going to criticize our host, we never do that. And there are a lot of other good ones too. And just to be clear, because I think this is really the most important point, to be a good media outlet has nothing to do with whether or not you lean to the right, you lean to the left, you're hard right, hard left. It doesn't matter. If you report the news fairly and truthfully, then, and you put your opinions on the editorial page where they belong, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I admire a number of left-wing publications when they when they report the news correctly, even if I strongly disagree with the opinions, because opinions are, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But as the great Senator Patrick Moynihan said, you're not entitled to your own facts. And at this day and age, unfortunately, we are all suffering because more and more people think they're entitled to their own facts. Telling the truth, it's not just critical to the media, it's critical to political leadership as well. As the Obama administration came to a close in December of 2016, it left a parting gift to the state of Israel. I would say a parting betrayal to the state of Israel. It permitted the passage by the United Nations Security Council of UN Resolution 2334, a resolution that deemed all of Judea, all of Samaria, all of East Jerusalem, the Western Wall, this beautiful setting here, everything that you can see from your chairs, all of it was deemed by that resolution to be illegally occupied territory. That resolution, I have no better word for that resolution than to simply call it what it was. That resolution was a lie. I wish there was a better word, but there really isn't. It was just a lie. Several months later, a new ambassador entered the United Nations as the permanent representative of the United States. She was a first-generation American, born to Indian parents, who went on to become the governor of South Carolina. Of course, you know who I'm speaking about, the great Nikki Haley. Ambassador Haley was given a clear mandate from President Trump. Tell the truth and stand up to the bullies. And boy, did she ever. What truths did Nikki Haley advance at the United Nations with respect to Israel? Well, how about this? The violence emanating from Gaza is the fault of Hamas, which brutalizes its own people and terrorizes Israel with missiles fired at civilian locations, at civilian population centers inside Israel. Or how about this? The Palestinian Authority cannot advance a legitimate claim to autonomy unless it first ends its practices of compensating and incentivizing terrorists and inciting hatred and violence. All seems pretty obvious to me, but no one ever said that before. Or how about the simple fact that the United Nations practice of demonizing Israel is nothing less than a racist obsession. And of course, on December 18th of 2017, Ambassador Haley gave a speech for the ages in which she exercised a United States veto of a Security Council resolution for the first time in 6 years, preventing passage of a resolution condemning President Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. In words that will never be forgotten, which had never before been heard in the well of the Security Council, words that echo and loudly ring true from this beautiful setting tonight. Ambassador Haley referred to, quote, the fundamental reality that Jerusalem has been the political, cultural, and spiritual homeland of the Jewish people for thousands of years, close quote. When asked repeatedly by the media why she was so pro-Israel, Ambassador Haley's response invariably was that she was just speaking the truth, right? How many times did we hear that? Just speaking the truth. And so we come back to the truth, the single ingredient needed for good policy and for good governance. We need it now more than ever in this dynamic and often unstable part of the planet. We are blessed with a president who, for the first time in a long time, has made the truth a cornerstone of American policy towards Israel. It is a practice that many Americans have longed for, and I know it is deeply appreciated within the state of Israel. A policy based upon the truth, upon reality, upon standing with our friend and ally, the state of Israel, and upon maintaining its security in a very dangerous region. It is the only way to create a foundation upon which peace will have the opportunity to emerge, God willing, may it happen. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for allowing me to say a few words. God bless all of you. God bless Israel, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
תודה רבה למר דיוויד פרידמן. טוב, הוא קצת עזר לנו לדבר על האורחת הבאה שלנו, שהוא באמת דיבר עליה, ואנחנו נדבר עליה עוד, כי היא באמת כל כך הייתה מפתיעה וחריגה בנוף לחיוב עבורנו הישראלים. So, it's time to hear our keynote speaker. Are you ready?
For anyone that says you can't get anything done at the UN, they need to know there's a new sheriff in town. The United States will not be told by any country where we can put our embassy. I wear heels. It's not for a fashion statement. It's because if I see something wrong, we're going to kick them every single time. It is essential that this council address its chronic anti-Israel bias if it is to have any credibility. I will always be respectful, but I will never shut up. You're not going to take our #1 Democratic friend in the Middle East and beat up on them. Jerusalem was, is, and will always be the capital of Israel.
I'm very honored to invite two strong and inspiring women. Israel Hayom publisher Dr. Miriam Edelson, and of course, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Mrs. Nikki Haley.
Shalom, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. In Hollywood, Israel Wonder Woman is Gal Gadot. But on the world stage, Israel Wonder Woman is another woman, a real woman, a woman who we are privileged to have with us here today on this stage in Jerusalem. She is a woman blessed not only with beauty, but also with brains and bravery. Ladies and gentlemen, Nikki Haley.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mary.
Nikki has been known by many titles: governor, ambassador, Republican leader, and potential first female president of the United States. For Israelis, or for anyone who cares about the Israeli-US relationship, she has a far simpler and more powerful title: friend. Throughout her public service, Nikki has shown those greatest of American traits: moral clarity and courage. Until just a few months ago, she was America's top envoy to the United Nations. She put the fear of God into the God-forsaken place. She stood up to bullies. She called out hypocrites. She confronted countries that are happy to get money and protection from the United States, but not to support it in return. And Nikki defended Israel, always, openly, without hesitation or any apology, and often in defiance of other world power. She did so, I believe, because she knows that Israel is good. And she did so because she knows that the United States is never stronger, never more credible than when it honors its allies. Well, now is a chance for us to honor her back. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Nikki Haley.
Thank you.
So first thing first, what shoes are you wearing now?
Always wearing heels.
High heels. I asked because you once said that you wore heels to the United Nations so you could kick anyone you saw doing the wrong thing. Seriously now, looking back, did it approach work
It was the only approach we could use. I mean, here you had a situation where there's this organization of 193 countries. They're anti-American, they're anti-Israel. They continue to give us a hard time, but they continue to have their hands out asking for aid instead. And so I didn't want to go there and just be another ambassador. I wanted to go there and make sure that we changed things and that we moved the ball. I felt like the American people deserved that because they were paying a lot of money for the United Nations and we weren't getting a return on our investment. And so the only option was to go in, make sure that the ambassadors knew what the United States was for, what the United States was against, and then never apologize for it and continue to move forward.
So you wouldn't do it differently?
I would not do it differently. The truth needed to be said. It needed to be said clearly, and it needed to be said without any apology.
This is busy time for U.S. diplomacy in the Middle East. Just this week, the Trump administration held a conference in Bahrain that was meant to help the Palestinian economy as part of the U.S. peace plan. The Palestinians did not go to Bahrain. They have already rejected the peace plan, even though they have not seen it. And they are not even talking to the Trump administration. Is this all waste of time, Nikki?
Working towards peace is never a waste of time. We should all want peace. We should all want to see a peace plan be successful. I will tell you that the work that Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt have put into this plan, this is not just a few sentences on a page. I have seen the plan. It's very well thought out. It's detailed. It's doable. And it does things that would improve the lives of the Palestinians, yes, but it doesn't compromise the national security of Israel. And those are the two components we desperately need to see. And so I think that what we've done is, certainly tried to lay the groundwork. I think the Trump administration's been courageous in the way that they said, we're going to push for this and try and do our part. I mean, look, we're not going to beg the Palestinians to come to the peace table, but it really says a lot about the Palestinian Authority that they wouldn't want better for their own people. That's the sad part, because the Palestinians do deserve better. The problem is if their own leaders don't want them to have more, they're never going to get it. I do think that what's coming off of a very successful conference, from what I can tell in Bahrain, shows another approach, which is the Palestinians may not want to come to the table, but if their neighbors want them to come to the table, then it's a totally different ballgame. And I think that the Arab community will see over time they can't continue to babysit the Palestinians. The Americans have already said, we won't babysit the Palestinians. And so I think it's time for them to step up.
If the Palestinians insist on rejecting the deal, what should Israel do? Should it declare that Judah and Samaria are its sovereign territory, like Jerusalem and Golan?
I think we should see how the peace plan plays out. I mean, I think that we should give this a chance. I think everyone should be open-minded as we go into it. I mean, I think if you look at Jerusalem, that was stating a fact. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. No matter what the Arab countries were telling the Palestinians, that is the truth. And I think the Trump administration was very courageous in saying, we're not going to deny the truth anymore. We're going to acknowledge what is real. We have all of our embassies in the capital of countries. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, so why wouldn't the American embassy be there? And I think that was the first thing. When it comes to the Golan Heights, I mean, I think you look at the fact that we're not going to let Assad have that back, but the people there don't want it to go back to Syria. So those were two that we were able to move the ball on. And I think now we just have to see where the Palestinians are, but this is really a moment of truth for them. Do they want to continue to live the way they're living and accept it, or do they want to see what opportunity could look like? It's all in their hands now.
Thank you. Why is Israel mistreated and singled out at the UN? Why does the UN typically condemn Israel's response to an attack rather than the attack itself.
It's interesting because for a while I wanted to see exactly what was the anti-Israel bias about. When I first got there, I had heard about it, but didn't think much of it until I attended the first Middle East session, which, by the way, is not about the Middle East. It's not about Syria, it's not about Yemen, it's not about Hezbollah, it's not about Hamas. It's only about Israel. And when I sat in that first session and heard ambassador after ambassador just bash Israel, just because they always had, it was disgusting. And so that's when we said, we're not going to allow this to happen anymore. There are too many other issues in the Middle East we need to talk about. And so every meeting, I would talk about another threat in the Middle East that we should be worried about. And over time, you saw other ambassadors start to do that because the fact was they were embarrassed. What I do think has happened is the Arab countries realized after the 1967 war that they were never going to defeat Israel. So they did the only thing they knew they could, was go after Israel in the UN and do it diplomatically. And because of the wealth of those countries, because of the oil, they went to all the little countries and said, you need to be voting with us. That's what started it. Now it's time to end it, because behind closed doors, so many of those ambassadors respect Israel. Not, the Arab community is the Arab community, but when you look at the other small countries of the 193, there are so many that actually respect the strength and intelligence of Israel. And so I think that what we did was we allowed them to suddenly stand up for the first time and not be alone. And I have to say to my friend and my partner and the person that really I so enjoyed working with, Danny Danone, was just an amazing ambassador at the United Nations.
How can we fight back?
We fight back by calling them out every single time. We call them out every time they tell a lie. We call them out every time they try and create their own truth. We call them out when they think we're not watching. And we never let our guard down, because the more we called them out, the less they would do it. And it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort, but the truth is always worth fighting for. And I think that we have to continue to do that. I will continue to do it in my own way. I think the President will continue to do it in his way. I think Ambassador Friedman and Jason and all of those who've worked so hard to fight for the American-Israeli alliance, we fight for that not just because we want to help our ally and friend Israel, but a strong Israel makes a strong America. And so we need everyone to acknowledge the value of Israel. I mean, it is the one bright spot in a really rough neighborhood. And we need to continue to show that the democratic values and the freedoms and all of the things that Israel encompasses, the Middle East actually wants. And so the better and stronger we make Israel, the safer we make the world.
At the UN, you exposed the lie of the Palestinian refugee narrative, that they count as refugees anyone whose parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents were displaced in the 1948 war. Just so we are clear, what is the true number of Palestinian refugees as far as the United States is concerned?
The number of actual Palestinian refugees is classified. There are multiple people working on it right now to unclassify it, and I think we should unclassify that number because I think it speaks through to the truth of what that whole scenario is. I personally really looked into UNRWA and the Palestinian refugees because when I first got to the UN, I wanted to find out what they did, what we could do to improve situations. And what I found was an agency that didn't want to be told what to do. They didn't want to reform. The way they count refugees is basically saying that any Palestinian, any place in the world is a refugee, because it doesn't matter if you have citizenship in another country. They want to give it for generations going forward, and nowhere else in the world are refugees counted like that. And so UNRWA would go around to the United Nations and always complain that the United States wasn't doing enough. The United States has given the Palestinians over $6 billion. We've done our part. So when the United States goes to UNRWA and says, we think you should reform, we think you should change the way you have your textbooks, we think the way you should change how you count refugees, and they tell us, no, we can't do it, and then they turn around every year, it's like a fundraiser, every year they say their schools are gonna close. And I finally had a conversation with the president, and I said, I promise you, they won't close, because it's nothing more than a fundraising tactic. So when they weren't willing to do our reforms, and they weren't willing to acknowledge the truths that we wanted to, the president was courageous enough and said, no more. We're not going to give any more aid to UNRWA. And on top of that, we were giving more than all of the Arab countries combined. Why would the United States be responsible for the Palestinians when their own brothers and sisters in the Arab community won't be responsible for them?
Exactly. Sounds like it's jumped through the genes, being refugee. This is the first time I hear about.
No, it's true, but not only that, the United States didn't give aid, and the schools never closed.
Fantastic. Okay. Will there be war with Iran?
We don't want war. The president doesn't want war. None of us should want war. But I think we have to be true to the fact that Iran is the #1 threat that we're facing now. And I think that we also have to be true to the fact that the Obama administration didn't help at all. I mean, I think that they went in, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, well-intentioned, that they thought they could bring peace. But all they did, after sending a plane full of money to Iran, was spread terrorism. Everything was worse, whether it was with Hezbollah in Lebanon, you look at Yemen, you look at Syria, you look at Afghanistan, and Iraq, all of these areas, Iran's tentacles started going everywhere, and they started to become more confident. And the Europeans, while they are our brothers and sisters, their egos got in the way, because it was very clear the deal didn't work. The president was right to get out of the Iran deal, because what you had was the Iranians were still testing ballistic missiles. They were still selling weapons and doing weapons transfers. They continued to support terrorism around the world, and we were giving them money to do it. And so the president rightly said, we're going to get out of the Iran deal. Their money has dried up. The Europeans have tried to save them, and they can't. And now we're seeing a panicked Iran. And what we have to realize is defunding them slowed down the nuclear process, but it didn't stop their culture of hate. They're still saying death to America. They're still saying death to Israel. And as long as they're doing that, we have to have very strong messages and let them know that one thing that goes out of line, we will respond, and we'll respond harshly.
Thank you. You are now in private sector, but we hope not for long. Is there any chance that you will announce here and now in Jerusalem that you plan to run for the president in 2024?
Well, I think that I think the air in Jerusalem brings clarity. And I can say with great clarity that I know I'm too young to stop fighting. I do know that. I know that I'm too passionate about a lot of issues. But I am also very much enjoying private life. And I will continue, whether it's helping President Trump, whether it's fighting on the issues that I have, I will continue to be loud and proud about all the things that are important, and I will find my own way in what that is. 2024 is a long ways away, and politics, 1 year in politics is a lifetime. But, what I can tell you with great clarity is I'll never stop fighting for what the U.S. believes in. I'll never stop fighting for Israel, and I'll never stop fighting for the bond that we have together.
I know you. I met you much earlier, before you were the United Nations envoy, the American one, and I remember meeting you, and you always protected Israel.
Well, and I just want to say, and take a point of personal privilege, it's so great to see Sheldon out tonight. I told him he looked stronger and better than I've seen him in a long time. But so much of what has happened in Israel, I hope that everyone realizes Sheldon and Miriam have always been a big part of that. And a lot of the strength that the U.S. is showing for Israel, they've been in the sidelines and they've been behind the scenes, but they've been very involved. And we thank you for that, because you've been very, very good to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nikki, is there a difference between what country representatives say and do publicly at the United Nations and what they say to you privately behind the scenes?
Couple of things. One that was very interesting was after the president issued the attacks on Syria, when Assad used the chemical weapons on so many people, when the president actually issued those strikes, it was amazing the number of ambassadors that texted, pulled me to the side, or called me and said, it's so good to see the U.S. lead again. And I think that it's that American leadership that those ambassadors want to see. And I think that that's the same reason that when we talk about what Israeli leadership can mean to the world and what Israeli leadership means to America, it is important for us to say that, because it's heard, it's listened to, and I think that we're starting to see a shift. And I think that that shift is acknowledging the truth that we are blessed to have Israel in the Middle East. We need Israel. And I think that even the Arab countries, in their own way, recognize that they're going to have to deal with this. And the truth is, I have always said, you can't destroy what God has blessed. And Israel is blessed.
If you bless Israel, you are blessed. If you curse Israel, you are cursed. Last question, Nikki. One of the iconic images of you at the United Nations shows you holding up your hands to vote no on the Security Council draft resolution that would have condemned America for moving its embassy to Jerusalem. What did it feel like? Why was the fight to move the embassy so difficult at the United Nations?
It was one of my proudest moments. I mean, the idea that I could issue the veto for the fact that they were trying to tell us what was our sovereign right. We had every right to put the embassy wherever we wanted to put it. And the United Nations came after the U.S. hard. They did it in the Security Council, but then they did it in the General Assembly. And to be able to stand up and defend our right and our sovereignty and our friendship with Israel was a very proud moment. And I think that it was one that they were trying to humiliate the United States, and they were trying to humiliate Israel. And in the end, both of us came out stronger.
That's all we have to, that's all what we have time, unfortunately. Nikki, thank you. Thank you for joining us here tonight. And thank you for being a friend, a real friend, and God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Haley, and thank you, Dr. Edelson, for this interesting talk. Now I have the great honor to invite to the stage Mr. Jason Greenblatt, who is a special assistant to the U.S. President Donald Trump and a special representative for international negotiations, and who just came back from Bahrain Peace Conference. Please come on to the stage, Mr. Greenblatt.
Good evening, President Rivlin, Prime Minister and Mrs. Netanyahu. Good evening to my former colleague, very sadly, my former colleague, the outstanding Ambassador Nikki Haley and her husband Michael. To my good friends, our wonderful U.S. Ambassador David Friedman and his wife Tammy. Good evening to our dear Miriam and Sheldon. Good evening to all of the honored guests at this beautiful evening in Jerusalem, the capital of our closest ally, the State of Israel. I have chills standing here. My job has its challenges and its frustrations, but it also provides many blessings. I have the opportunity to work with such incredible people. People who don't just want to make the world a better place and a safer place, but also people who have courage. People who have a clear vision for a safe and prosperous future. One of those people is President Trump. He needs no introduction to this audience. No one in this room needs me to list the historic and bold and most of all courageous things President Trump has done for the State of Israel and the Jewish people. I have been honored to work for President Trump for more than 22 years, and throughout all of those years, he has shown the same tremendous courage. Another one of those people is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. You don't need me to tell you about the sacrifices he has made for the people and the State of Israel, and the courage he has shown in defending the State of Israel. And of course, I count among those people Miriam and Sheldon, tremendous givers of tzedakah, performers of chesed, always watching out for Israel and the Jewish people and things near and dear to our hearts. Miriam and Sheldon, thank you for all you have done for the Jewish people and the State of Israel. You are true heroes. Over these past 2.5 years, along with my colleagues on the U.S. Peace Team, Jared Kushner and David Friedman, I have been on an incredible journey. We brought a fresh set of eyes and open ears. We watched, we listened, we studied, we learned, and we challenged what we thought we knew. Our teachers were many. There were government officials and diplomats, Israeli, Palestinian, Arab, and international. There were ordinary Israelis and Palestinians. There were people who suffered in this conflict, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, religious and secular, children and adults. With them, we experienced many emotional and heart-wrenching moments. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has borne countless tragedies and much grief. We also saw so much promise and potential. We saw this among Israeli soldiers who tirelessly fight every day to defend the State of Israel from the many ever-evolving threats to the State of Israel. We saw it among Palestinians living under the brutal rule of Hamas in Gaza. We saw it among Palestinians residing in refugee camps who have been used as pawns in a political game and who should have been allowed to start new lives decades ago. We saw it among ordinary Israelis and Palestinians. Among many of them, we found the same values, hopes, and a healthy and not unsurprising degree of skepticism about the prospects for peace. On our journey, we also found much that was less encouraging. In some places, we found bitterness and cynicism. We found some holding on tight to old resentments, refusing to let them go. We found some who told themselves the same stories that they learned decades ago as children over and over again, so many times and so loudly that they were unable or unwilling to listen. And among certain officials, we heard demands that are simply not achievable and that are unworkable. We met with optimists and pessimists, the curious and the naysayers. We met those willing to look forward to see what might be, and those who insisted on dwelling in the past. The optimists, the curious, and the courageous are willing to engage, to discuss and see if a realistic solution to the conflict exists. The pessimists and the naysayers have a tougher time trying to envision something different. And then there is a third group, those with hate in their heart who will never change, and they have no vision and they will remain in place. Over these past 2+ years, we have welcomed constructive criticism. Every serious person who understands this conflict knows that there are very significant challenges to achieving a lasting and comprehensive peace. We have learned a great deal from those who have shared their rational doubts, their very real concerns, and their respectable questions. We have embraced their wisdom, their expertise, and their ideas. We have benefited from spirited debate with our friends from across the political spectrum, American, Israeli, Palestinian, Jordanian, Egyptian, and European. They have been willing to use their experience and wisdom to inform and not to avoid hard choices. But ours is not a journey of self-delusion. There's no magic wand that President Trump or Prime Minister Netanyahu or President Abbas might have to wave to resolve this conflict. There is no easy answer as to how to balance the absolute imperative of protecting Israel's security, a principle on which the United States will never, ever compromise, with Palestinian aspirations. There is no quick fix for the people of Gaza who suffer under the de facto rule of a corrupt, violent, and incompetent Hamas authority who have refused to yield to international pleas to better the lives of the Palestinians who live there. To make a difference here, we have to have the courage to be honest with ourselves and others who are seeking a solution to the conflict. We have to have the courage to put aside slogans and jargon and to deal with reality. This approach upsets people. It makes people uncomfortable, but it's the only way to make progress. My colleagues and I have been accused of being undiplomatic at times, but I would note that our critics are very rarely diplomatic in their messages to us. We can't improve lives without being truthful. We can't improve lives by making false promises or signing up for unrealistic and unworkable solutions. President Trump told the truth when he recognized the reality that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Nikki told the truth when she called out the hate and the bias against the state of Israel at the United Nations. And President Trump tells the truth when he says that the United States will never compromise on Israel's security. Yesterday's peace plans have been unable to chart a path to a brighter and more prosperous future while addressing the many challenges to overcome. Silence and rejection from the Palestinian Authority has led to nothing good for the Palestinian people. Terrorism by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad has led to nothing but continued suffering and misery for the people of Gaza. I have just returned from Bahrain, where hundreds attended an exciting U.S.-Bahraini Peace to Prosperity workshop. It is a shame that the Palestinian Authority chose not to attend and to try to convince others not to attend. They distorted our message and attempted to undermine our progress, but they did not succeed. Not for the first time, they missed a real opportunity. By drawing the curtain around themselves and turning their back on friends and partners from across the world, they missed the opportunity to see what is on the other side of that curtain. What is on the other side? A brighter future for Palestinians and for the entire region, drafted by people willing to say that the status quo is not good enough. An alternative path with the potential to unlock a prosperous future for the Palestinian people if they choose to follow it. An exciting economic vision with real projects and programs with the potential to unleash sustainable private sector-driven growth, a new life for the next generation of Palestinians. As my colleague Jared Kushner said in Bahrain, the people who attended the workshop didn't shy away from the problems because they were told that they were too hard. They weren't discouraged by the conventional wisdom about the fate of the Palestinians. They didn't give up after hearing meeting after meeting the same broken record of negativity of why progress cannot be made. Instead, global leaders and experts on investment came from all across the world to show that there is an interest, an appetite, and a willingness by the global community to help the Palestinians in the right context, the context of a realistic peace deal, if the parties can achieve one. Can we untangle this mess? Can we create something that both Israelis and Palestinians can live with safely, securely, and prosperously? Part of our method on this path to answer these questions has been to confront deception on the one hand, wishful thinking on the other hand, and to speak hard truths. We might get there if people recognize that vague terms such as international law, UN resolutions, and internationally recognized parameters are not always clear-cut. They're interpreted differently in good faith by different parties, and they do not provide an executable solution to this conflict. We might get there if people stop pretending settlements, or what I like to call neighborhoods and cities, are the reason for the lack of peace. We might get there if other countries, besides the United States and Israel, call out the Palestinian Authority's vile pay-to-slave policy and push the PA to end this abhorrent practice. We might get there if others stop pretending that this conflict is the core conflict of the Middle East. It's not. The United States and President Trump are committed to fighting for a better future for Palestinians, for Israelis, and for the entire Middle East. We embrace this challenge. We also embrace doubts, realistic concerns, and rational questions. The conflict is sad and tragic and complex on so many levels. There are no guaranteed results. Success can only be achieved, if at all, with direct negotiations between the parties, not by bypassing negotiations, not by more UN resolutions, not by international conferences that create bullets of peace points that cannot be implemented. Tonight, let's celebrate the value that so many of you have shown and the value to which we should all aspire: courage. The courage to tell the truth, the courage to stand by our friends and our allies, the courage to imagine and hope and work towards a better future while also recognizing reality. Let us stand strong, work, and pray for a better future for the entire region. Let us take the experience that we had in Bahrain with Israelis and Arabs, Jews, Muslims, Christians, and others who discussed big ideas. Let us take the prayers from the synagogue in Bahrain that had no Torah but a beautiful minyan for the first time ever, and see if we can make progress for Israel and its neighbors, including the Palestinians, work and live together as good neighbors and to defend themselves together against the very real threats that they all face. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Greenblatt. מיד יהיה איתנו הנואם האחרון שלנו לערב, הפילנטרופ סילבן אדמס, אבל קודם אני רוצה להודות לכבוד הנשיא, לכבוד נשיא המדינה להשתתפותו באירוע. בשל אילוצי לוחות זמנים הוא נאלץ לעזוב אותנו כעת, ואנחנו נכבד את צאתו בקימה. הדובר האחרון והמיוחד שלנו, אפשר לומר, הוא הפילנטרופ סילבן אדמס, שעלה לישראל רק לפני שנתיים, ומאז הוא נלחם ללא לאות בתנועת החרם, ה-BDS, ומחזק את תדמיתה של ישראל בעולם במגוון דרכים יצירתיות, והדגש הוא על יצירתיות. אדמס הוא האיש שהביא את מרוץ האופניים העולמי, הג'ירו דה איטליה, לישראל. להזכירכם, המרוץ הזה ריתק אליו למעלה מ-800 מיליון צופים. אדמס הוא גם האיש שאחראי להבאה של מדונה לאירוויזיון. הוא לא אחראי לביצוע ולא לשירה, אבל הוא אחראי להופעה. והוא תמך גם בפרויקט החללית בראשית לצד משפחת אדלסון וגם תורמים אחרים. והערב הוא כאן איתנו. So, I would like to invite to the stage a great friend of Israel a philanthropist who is working relentlessly to improve Israel's image, Mr. Sylvan Adams. The stage is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a special pleasure and honor it is for me to be sharing the stage with this powerhouse lineup at the inaugural Israel Hayom for U.S.-Israel Relations Forum, celebrating the warm friendship between Israel and our closest ally, the United States of America. Moshe Aaron's, represented by his daughter Aliza. His accomplishments are too long to mention, but I had the personal privilege a couple of years ago to hand to Moshe Aaron's a Boneh Tzion Lifetime Achievement Award for meritorious service to the state by English-speaking Ole. At age 90, he took the stage and delivered a warm and brilliant acceptance speech. Aliza, I was privileged to have known your father, a truly special man. Boaz Bismuth, capable editor-in-chief of the newspaper with the largest circulation in Israel. He is smart, yet warm, hardworking, yet extremely sociable, and also someone with whom I can converse in French. Merci Boaz de m'avoir invité de participer à cette conférence importante. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, you are one of the world's most respected leaders, earning our country new friendships amongst world leaders in Moscow, Beijing, New Delhi, Tokyo, multiple capitals in South America and Africa, and even in certain Arab capitals. A lineup that would have been unthinkable before your tireless outreach to formerly hostile nations. But let's not forget your friendship with the most important national leader, President Donald Trump, with whom it appears you have a genuine bromance. Well done, Prime Minister, and good luck in the upcoming elections. Special Advisor to the President, Jason Greenblatt. I had the pleasure of being in Bahrain at the Peace to Prosperity workshop in Bahrain, as I was honored to be included in the Israeli delegation. We are making new friends in the Sunni Arab world, thanks largely to Jason's, Jared Kushner's, and Ambassador David Friedman's persistent efforts. And of course, thanks to your boss, President Trump, for moving the embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and being so engaged in trying to solve this problem using a different approach than the unsuccessful strategies tried in the past. The payoff in terms of investment and the peace dividend that will follow should be persuasive, even if the Palestinian leaders don't see it that way yet. I sat together with Palestinian businessmen at the conference who withstood pressures at home, urging them not to attend because of the substantial opportunities this process offers for their people. For your information, Jason has the political part of the deal of the century in his back pocket, but I couldn't get him to show it to me. Ambassador David Friedman, you were forced to skip Manama as you were working on another key file with John Bolton, the Russians, and us, keeping Iran out of Syria. Many moving parts to all of this, but what can better describe the United States' commitment to Israel's security and prosperity than investing so much effort by America's best and brightest? Thank you so much for all that you're doing. We will be celebrating America's birthday in a few days in Jerusalem. Happy 243rd, Mr. Ambassador. Miriam Adelson. Special thanks for hosting this event, celebrating the unique relationship between our two countries. But more importantly, thanks to you and your husband Sheldon for your love of Israel and unfailing generosity and philanthropy on behalf of this country and the Jewish people. Coincidentally, these are precisely the two themes of my own philanthropy: promoting Israel and strengthening Jewish identity in the diaspora. Miri, I salute you for the outstanding work that you're doing, and I'm proud to call you a friend. And best wishes to you, Sheldon. It's great to see you here in good form after your recent health battle. Welcome back. And last, but certainly not least, former governor, former ambassador, and dare I say, future president after President Trump's second term, of course, Nikki Haley. Ambassador Haley, may I call you Nikki? Thank you for your unfailing efforts to stand up for what is right and following a morally righteous path, speaking truth to power. You were right to point out that UNRWA perpetuates rather than works to alleviate the Palestinian refugee issue, and by logical extension, to defund this organization until necessary reforms are implemented. You were also right to withdraw the United States from the Orwellian UN Human Rights Council, which routinely proclaims harsh criticism of democratic Israel while giving a virtual free pass to rogue states such as Venezuela, North Korea, Iran, and Syria. Nikki, Israel couldn't have a better friend. Thank you on behalf of the entire Jewish people. We already miss your brilliance at the UN. So, why is a Canadian guy like me invited to present alongside these most distinguished speakers at a conference celebrating the U.S.-Israeli relationship? Well, when my wife Margaret and I made Aliyah 3 short years ago, I printed up these business cards with a title that reads, Self-Appointed Ambassador at Large for the State of Israel. So Nikki and David, you're not the only ambassadors on the stage tonight. As an Israeli who grew up some 50 kilometers from the US border, I know something about the special relationship with the world's foremost economic and moral superpower. But in my role as ambassador, I'm going to change the discussion slightly tonight from the US-Israeli relationship and unabashedly promote Israel. Having enjoyed a successful business career, I decided to devote the next chapter of my life to promoting my adopted country, the homeland of the Jewish people. Specifically, I want to speak to the large majority of people around the world who neither particularly like us nor do they strenuously dislike us, because in fact they don't really know Israel. But if asked, this massive constituency would largely have a negative opinion of our country. This is due to the constant drumbeat of monochromatic, unidimensional news coverage, focused exclusively on the conflict. My mission is to reach out to this silent majority and to show them the real Israel that we who live here experience daily, the diverse, tolerant, open, pluralistic, friendly, energetic, fiercely democratic. Just ask our Prime Minister how democratic. And most importantly, how safe Israel is. I like to call this normal yet exemplary Israel. Exemplary because our Jewish cultural imperative obligates us to work towards something called tikkun olam, literally healing the world. We are using our technological prowess as a force of good around the globe, helping others in a multitude of areas. In drought agriculture, solar-powered toilets in Africa, life-saving juvenile heart surgery for Palestinians and Africans, disaster recovery wherever needed, artificial limb technology, and many, many more areas where Israeli technology and know-how are helping the less fortunate. I'm proud to say that I am an important donor in a number of these areas. Our normal Israel is a haven that provided for an ingathering of Jewish exiles from 6 continents. There are no Jews in, or anyone else in Antarctica. Nikki, I don't know if you've ever met any Indian Jews, but I have relatives here through marriage who are of Indian descent. Somewhat recently arrived in Israel and absolutely thriving here. This is a big, successful, tolerant melting pot. But we also have a 20% Arab minority who enjoy democratic and human rights, including the freedoms of worship and speech, unknown elsewhere in this region. We have Arab-Israeli policemen, lawyers, and judges, Arab-Israeli doctors and nurses. Believe me, when you're in the hospital, you're not asking your doctor about his ethnic origins. The reverse is also true, by the way. Your doctor doesn't care whether you celebrate Shabbat or Ramadan. We have Arab diplomats representing Israel abroad, and of course, Arab-Israeli members of the Knesset. We even have Arab-Israeli soldiers defending their country. And somehow, in all this diversity, we all seem to get along pretty well most of the time. When lazy, irresponsible journalists call this normal Israel and ignore this normal Israel and portray us to an unfamiliar audience as a war zone, well, President Trump coined a phrase for this, fake news. My experience with first-time visitors to Israel is that they are almost universally surprised and impressed, as the Israel they experience is not what the fake news had led them to expect. Some of you may know that I brought the Giro d'Italia, big start, well, it was announced, to Israel last year as part of the 70th birthday celebrations. The Giro is the world's 4th most watched event after the Olympic Games, World Cup of Soccer, and Tour de France. Close to 1 billion people watch the Giro on TV. Compare this to the largest watched event on the American calendar, the Super Bowl, the 2019 edition of which drew a mere 98 million. And unlike the Super Bowl that takes place in an indoor stadium, bicycle racing happens outdoors. So 1 billion people saw a large part of our beautiful country through stunning helicopter photography from Haifa in the north all the way down to Eilat in the south. I like to think of this as bringing 1 billion first-time visitors to Israel via their TV sets. I told Tourism Minister Yariv Levin to expect a BG and an AG effect on tourist visits here, before the Giro and after the Giro. He is justifiably proud that tourism to Israel has increased to over 4.5 million annual visits on his watch. I truly believe we can do better, much better, as we can and should attract 20 million visitors a year. Then opinions of this country would change. Prime Minister, let's work together on this. We can make this happen. This will pay for itself many times over, both financially and in goodwill. I know something else about Israelis. We want to be loved. So if we can reach out to the world in a massive way and portray a positive image of our country, this engenders national pride and unifies our citizens. Please watch a short clip of the magical ride that took place all over Israel just 1 year ago.
La meraviglia di Gerusalemme, della città vecchia di Gerusalemme, interamente.
La grande partenza, i 9,7 km, le nazionalità presenti in questo Giro d'Italia numero...
The peak of Mount Negev. We started in Beersheba today.
First Giro competition outside Europe, and we're very proud.
The Giro d'Italia, the world's second biggest bike race behind the Tour de France, has its big start in Israel, is coming to the Middle East in a big way. And this is the man who made it happen.
we're hoping to develop cycling amongst the youth and reach the highest level of the sport.
The Giro d'Italia, 101st edition. Yes, we're in Jerusalem. Dennis on the right-hand side. Remember, he needs 2 seconds to go to the pink jersey. He's going to do it. Who's going to take the victory? Kenya goes for it. Viviani goes as well. It's up 12, not quite. Still got it right. 10 meters to go. He's just going to get there. Tom de Mamar in the frame as well. Oh, Viviani taking to the barriers and fights his way through. Holds his position. Here's the line coming, and Viviani surely.
I want to create a permanent endowment of at least $100 million, which I think should be funded largely by private donations, but also with some significant government support. I'm ready to lead by example as the lead donor to this fund. Thank you. Such an endowment would provide a sure source of funding for these sorts of activities in the future and ensure more events are held in Israel. The Giro was proof of concept in terms of its effectiveness in projecting normal Israel abroad and also in fostering national pride and unity amongst Israelis. So was Eurovision 2019 in Tel Aviv, which was seen by over 200 million music fans. So was our lunar mission, Breshit, which demonstrated Israeli ingenuity and technological prowess on a shoestring budget. I was proud to make important contributions to all of these projects. So did the Adelsons and the government of Israel. I think they deserve our applause. Thank you, partners. If we can bring major international events to Israel on a regular basis, we can change the image of our country, which sadly today, for the reasons I've described, is not very good. I'm calling on philanthropic Israelis and diaspora Jews, as well as the state, to join me in this endeavor. I'll be happy to take pledges at the end of this conference. BDS is a small but very vocal group of haters, astute in the use of modern media techniques. They are inflicting real harm to Israel by infecting the minds of the silent majority, especially amongst the younger population, including our Jewish youth, who are sadly ignorant of our history and the reason a Jewish state was recreated in Eretz Israel after a 2,000-year absence. By showing our normal Israel to those people, bypassing the traditional fake news media, we are putting a lie to the distortions of BDS and encouraging the apolitical majority to reconsider what they've been sold. This can be done without lecturing, but rather in this age of short attention spans, with appealing visual and sensory imagery. We have a great product, this special country. We need to sell it better. People who know my mission ask me, Sylvan, what are you bringing next? Well, I'm working on several interesting new projects, but don't worry, there'll be more, much more, as I'm just getting started. God bless the USA. God bless Israel. Thank you.
מרחבת קשת רובינסון, נאחל לנו וילדינו עוד מאות שנים לפחות של ידידות חזקה ואמיצה. המון תודה לכם, לילה טוב, שבת שלום, good night, שלום. תודה רבה לראש הממשלה ולרעייתו, הגברת שרה נתניהו.